The morning started like any other Tuesday at the United Nations building in New York. Delegates shuffled through security, coffee cups in hand, preparing for another day of endless debates about trade agreements and border disputes. Secretary General Maria Santos was reviewing her schedule when the temperature in the General Assembly Hall dropped 20 degrees in 3 seconds. The air shimmered like heat waves rising from summer pavement, but cold instead of hot. Then reality tore open like wet paper. The thing that stepped through made everyone in the room forget how to breathe. It stood 12 feet tall, made of what looked like living crystal that caught light and threw it back in colors that hurt to look at. Its voice came from everywhere at once, not through the air but directly into their minds. I am Ambassador HFY of the Zephyrian Empire. I speak for the Galactic Council. Security guards reached for weapons that suddenly felt very small and useless. Some delegates fainted. Others began praying in languages they remembered from childhood. Maria Santos gripped her podium so hard her knuckles went white, but she stayed standing. The species you call humanity has violated the primitive species protection protocols. The crystal being continued. Its mental voice carried the weight of stars. You have developed faster-than-light communication without authorization. You have attempted to breach dimensional barriers. You have become a threat. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in the observer section, her heart hammering but her mind racing. As director of Project Looking Glass, she knew exactly what the alien was talking about. 3 years ago, her team had successfully sent a message to Alpha Centauri and received a reply in under 6 hours. 2 months ago, they had opened a small window into what they called parallel space. Both achievements were classified, beyond top secret. The Council has governed this galaxy for 50,000 years, HFY announced. We have guided 3,847 species to peaceful development. We have prevented 12,439 wars. We have maintained order. Maria Santos found her voice. What do you want from us? The crystal being's faceted head turned toward her, and she felt her soul being weighed. Compliance. You will surrender all advanced technology to Council oversight. You will submit to genetic modification that will remove your species' aggressive tendencies. You will accept permanent orbital monitoring stations. Murmurs of outrage began to rise from the delegates, but HFY's next words silenced them. The alternative is extinction, complete, final. Your species will be removed from existence as if it never was. You have 1 solar rotation cycle to decide. Dr. Chen's blood turned to ice. She had studied alien contact scenarios for 15 years. This was not first contact. This was Judgment Day. 47 species have faced this choice before you, the ambassador continued. 47 species chose incorrectly. Their worlds are now empty. Their names are forgotten. Their achievements are dust. The Russian delegate, a man named Volkov, who had never backed down from a fight in his life, stood up slowly. And if we refuse? If we choose to fight? HFY's crystalline form seemed to pulse with amusement. You would fight the Council? With your chemical rockets and metal bullets? Your computers that think in binary code? Your bodies that die from simple radiation? More laughter, but not from the alien. The sound came from 12 other voices in their heads, each one different. Chen realized there were other Council members present, just not visible. Your species mastered fire 100,000 years ago, said a voice like grinding metal. We mastered the manipulation of atomic forces 45,000 years ago. You discovered electricity 300 years ago, added a voice like wind through leaves. We learned to convert matter to energy at will 30,000 years ago. You built your first computer 80 years ago, whispered a voice like static. We created artificial intelligence that spans galaxies 25,000 years ago. Dr. Chen pulled out her phone and typed a single message to her deputy director. Code Black. Execute mirror protocol. Tell Torres it's time. Thex High's attention focused on her like a laser. Dr. Sarah Chen, director of your species' most advanced research project, you believe you can hide your thoughts from us? Chen stood up, her legs shaking, but her voice steady. I believe you've made a mistake. Enlighten us, primitive. You showed yourselves too early. You revealed what you are, what you can do, how you think. You've given us information. She took a breath. In every war humanity has ever fought, information has been the most powerful weapon. The alien's crystalline form shifted, and for the first time, Chen heard uncertainty in its mental voice. War? You speak of war? Your species has never faced anything like the Council. No, Chen agreed, but the Council has never faced anything like humanity. She pressed send on her message. 3 floors below the General Assembly, in a basement that officially didn't exist, General Marcus Torres received the message. His weathered face showed no emotion as he turned to the bank of monitors showing satellite feeds from around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced to the room full of military personnel from every major nation, Project Looking Glass has just gone live. Phase 1 is now active. On the monitors, ships began moving in Earth's asteroid belt. Not human ships, at least not entirely. These vessels had been built in secret over the past 5 years, using technology recovered from crash sites that governments had been hiding for decades. The ships looked wrong, alien, but they moved with human purpose. Sir, called out a technician, deep space sensors are picking up massive energy signatures, 12 of them moving toward Earth. The Council fleet. Torres nodded. Right on. Schedule. Back in the General Assembly, Thex High was finishing its ultimatum. You have 24 hours to begin surrender procedures. Genetic modification facilities will be constructed on your moon. Your most intelligent individuals will be processed first. Processed? Asked Santos. Made safe. Made peaceful. Made useful. The alien's tone suggested this was a kindness. You will thank us when your violent nature is removed. All species do eventually. Dr. Chen felt sick. She understood now. The 47 extinct species weren't dead. They were slaves. Their minds altered, their bodies modified, serving the Council as living tools. One day, Thex High continued, your descendants will help us guide the next primitive species to peace. It is an honor. The crystal being began to fade, reality healing around it like water. But before it disappeared completely, Chen called out, Ambassador, you said 47 species chose incorrectly. What did they choose? Thex High's form solidified again, and Chen thought she detected something like sadness in its alien features. They chose to fight. Then it was gone, leaving only the smell of ozone and the memory of stars burning cold. The General Assembly erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted, phones rang, security guards barked orders. But Dr. Chen sat quietly, checking her watch. In 18 hours, the Council would discover that humanity had made its choice 3 years ago, the moment they first detected signs of galactic civilization. They had chosen to fight, but not the way anyone expected. They had chosen to win. As Chen walked out of the building, her phone buzzed with a message from her team. Mirror protocol active. Looking glass arrays powered up. Torres confirms fleet deployment successful. Beginning radio silence in T-6 hours. She smiled for the first time since the alien appeared. The Council thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were about to learn they were wrong. Very wrong. 3 days before the Council's deadline, the universe went quiet. Admiral Kithmar of the Vaxxon Collective felt it first. The constant chatter of a billion minds that had filled his consciousness for 300 years simply stopped. One moment. He was connected to every Vaxxon across 17 star systems, sharing thoughts and experiences as naturally as breathing. The next moment, he was alone inside his own head for the first time in his life. The sensation drove him to his knees on the bridge of his flagship. Around him, other Vaxxin crew members were collapsing, clutching their heads, making sounds he had never heard before. It took him several minutes to realize they were screaming. On the gas giant Luminos, the energy beings called Lumari found themselves trapped in physical form. For 10,000 years, they had existed as pure consciousness, shifting between dimensions as easily as humans moved between rooms. Now they were stuck in crude matter-based bodies, panicking as they felt weight and temperature and pain for the first time. High Coordinator Zexthul of the mechanical synthoids watched his processing networks fail one by one. The vast computer, systems that connected every synthoid across the galaxy, simply went dark. Error messages cascaded across his visual displays faster than he could read them. Across the Council's domain, the same thing was happening to all 12 member species. Communication networks collapsed. Faster-than-light data transmission stopped working. Even simple radio signals were being absorbed by something invisible. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Project Looking Glass, watching. The most sophisticated piece of technology humanity had ever built. The mirror arrays looked deceptively simple. 12 metallic dishes arranged in a perfect circle, each one aimed at a different point in space. "Report," she called out. "All targets. Locked," replied her deputy, Dr. James Walsh. "Quantum cascade is holding steady. The feedback loops are propagating through their networks faster than we predicted." Chen nodded, studying the data streams on her screens. 3 years ago, when her team first detected the Council's quantum communication signatures, they had made a discovery that changed everything. The aliens' technology was incredibly advanced, but it had a fatal flaw. It was all connected. The Council species had built their civilization on shared consciousness, instant communication, and networked intelligence. They had created the most sophisticated information system in galactic history. They had also created the biggest target humans had ever seen. "Mirror protocol status?" Chen asked. "Phase 1 complete. We've successfully isolated 12 major network clusters. Phase 2 initiating now." The mirror arrays were humanity's masterpiece of reverse-engineered alien technology. They didn't just jam communications, they created quantum feedback loops that turned advanced networks against themselves. The more sophisticated the system, the more damage it took. General Torres's voice came through the secure line. "Sarah, we're getting reports from our monitoring stations. Council fleets are going dark across the galaxy. Some are reporting navigation failures." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "That's because their ships don't just communicate with each other. They're part of the network, too. Every Council vessel is connected to their central intelligence system. And now they're all getting the same signal, over and over again. A recursive loop that tells them to shut down and wait for instructions that will never come." On the Council world of Hegemony Prime, emergency sessions were being called for the first time in 1,000 years. Representatives from the 12 species gathered in the great crystalline dome that had hosted peaceful negotiations for millennia. Now they looked like refugees from a disaster. Ambassador HFY materialized in the center of the chamber, but his usually perfect crystal form was cracked and dim. "The communication blackout is complete. We have lost contact with 94% of our forces." The Molari delegate, a slug-like creature the size of a small building, spoke with obvious effort. "My species has not experienced isolation in 2,000 years. Our young are dying. They do not know how to exist without the collective consciousness." The Yi. "Humans," hissed the draconic representative. "This must be their doing, but their technology is primitive. How could they disrupt our networks?" HFY's cracks deepened. I reviewed their files again. Their computer systems are indeed simple. Binary code, electrical impulses, crude beyond measure. Then how? Because crude systems cannot be hacked by sophisticated attacks. Their networks are too basic to be infiltrated by our usual methods. They built everything separately, with physical connections that cannot be severed remotely. The council members looked at each other with growing horror. They had spent 50,000 years building the perfect network, connecting every ship, every station, every world. They had created a system so advanced it could think faster than any biological mind, and now it was being destroyed by creatures who still used wires and radio waves. Back on Earth, the human fleet was moving. 200 ships had been hidden throughout the solar system for 3 years, built in secret mining facilities on asteroids and hidden bases on the far side of the moon. They looked alien because much of their technology was alien, but they were crewed by humans who understood something the Council had forgotten: how to fight without a network. Captain Elena Kowalski commanded the lead ship, the UES Defiance. Unlike Council vessels, it had no artificial intelligence, no quantum computers, no connection to any network. It was run by humans making decisions with their own brains, communicating with physical radio signals, navigating by instruments that would have seemed ancient to any Council species. "Helm, set course for the Zephyrian monitoring station," she ordered. "Communications, maintain radio silence until we're in weapons range." "Weapons range, ma'am?" asked her tactical officer. "Their shields can deflect our energy weapons." Kowalski smiled grimly. "Who said anything about energy weapons?" The UES Defiance accelerated toward its target, carrying something the Council had never encountered: nuclear warheads guided by human determination and delivered by old-fashioned kinetic impact. While the aliens had advanced beyond such crude weapons millennia ago, they had also forgotten how to defend against them. On Hegemony Prime, the emergency session was dissolving into chaos. Species that had cooperated for thousands of years were now turning on each other as fear replaced logic. "This is your fault," the Synthoid delegate accused the Lumari. "Your dimensional experiments weakened our reality barriers." "Our experiments?" The trapped Lumari's voice cracked with strain. "Your mechanical minds created the network vulnerabilities." Ambassador Thexhai tried to restore order, but his own people were suffering. The Zephyrians' crystal bodies were designed to share energy with each other. Cut off from their network, they were slowly losing cohesion. "We must contact the human homeworld," he announced. "Offer them better terms. Negotiate." Negotiate? The draconic representative's eyes blazed. "With primitives? Never." "Then what do you suggest?" "Send the war fleets. Destroy their world before they can damage us further." Thexhai's form flickered. "The war fleets are not responding. The communication blackout is total." Silence fell over the chamber. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Galactic Council was helpless. Meanwhile, in the asteroid belt, Lieutenant Commander Ana Vasquez was preparing for the first boarding action in human history against an alien vessel. The Zephyrian monitoring station had been built to watch Earth and report back to the Council. Now it was going to serve a different purpose. "Remember," she told her team as they suited up, "their personal shields can stop energy weapons and most projectiles, but they've never encountered anything like this." She held up what looked like a simple metal tube with a button on one end. "Chemical explosives, gunpowder and metal fragments, technology so primitive they don't even have defenses against it." Her team grinned behind their helmets. They were about to teach the galaxy's most advanced species why humans had never stopped: making bombs. As the human ships moved toward their targets and the Council's civilization crumbled in silence, Dr. Chen watched the data streams and realized something that made her blood run cold. The 47 extinct species hadn't been destroyed. They were still out there, serving the Council as slaves. And now, with the Council's networks down, those enslaved worlds were sending desperate signals into space. They were calling for help. They were calling for rescue. They were calling for someone to set them free. Chen looked at her screens showing the positions of the human fleet and made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. "James," she called to her deputy, "send a message to General Torres. Tell him we're not just fighting for Earth anymore." Lieutenant Commander Ana Vasquez pressed herself against the cold metal wall of the Zephyrian monitoring station and checked her equipment one more time. The crystal aliens had built their outpost to be beautiful, all flowing curves and rainbow light. They had not built it to withstand humans with explosives and bad attitudes. "Remember," she whispered into her comm to her team of 6 Marines. "These beings think in terms of energy shields and force fields. They've never dealt with someone who just wants to blow stuff up." Through the station's transparent walls, she could see the Zephyrians moving around inside. They looked like living diamonds, reflecting light in impossible colors. There were 5 of them, probably panicking because they couldn't communicate with their home world. Vasquez pulled out what her grandmother would have recognized as a simple hand grenade. Chemical explosives wrapped in metal designed to fragment and send sharp pieces flying in all directions. The technology was over 100 years old. It was also completely unknown to aliens who had moved beyond physical weapons before humans. "Learn to make fire. On my mark," she said. 3, 2, 1. The explosion shattered the station's outer wall like glass. Atmosphere rushed out, alarms screamed, and the Zephyrians froze in shock. Their energy shields activated automatically, protecting them from the vacuum of space and the heat of the blast. But the shields did nothing to stop chunks of metal moving at high speed. 2 aliens fell immediately, their crystal bodies cracking where shrapnel hit them. The others began to glow brighter, powering up what Vasquez assumed were weapons. She shot them with bullets. Simple lead bullets fired from chemical cartridges by mechanical springs. The Zephyrians' defensive systems didn't even register the threat, until the bullets were already through their bodies. "Target secured," Vasquez reported as her team moved through the wreckage, beginning data recovery. Meanwhile, 3 star systems away, the war was getting weird. Captain Elena Kowalski watched through her ship's view screen as human Marines fought hand-to-hand combat with aliens who had never seen physical violence before. On the planet Cathara, site of the Council's Military Coordination Center, her ground forces were teaching the galaxy a lesson about why humans had never stopped fighting wars. The Malari defenders were 12 feet long, slug-like creatures who communicated through chemical signals and fought by releasing toxic gases. Their tactics were based on honor duels and careful maneuvering. They had no idea how to deal with human soldiers who used combined arms tactics, air support, and explosive devices that turned their honor duels into chaos. "Sir," reported Major Williams from the planet's surface, "the enemy is confused. They keep trying to challenge our squad leaders to single combat." "And your response?" "We're calling in artillery strikes on their positions while they're making their challenge speeches." Kowalski shook her head. "How are they reacting?" "They think we're insane, ma'am. I heard one of them say humans fight like natural disasters instead of rational beings." On her tactical display, Kowalski could see the battle progressing exactly as planned. The Malari had superior weapons and stronger bodies, but they fought like chess players. Humans fought like a storm. "Continue the advance," she ordered. "And Major, send a message to any Malari who want to surrender. Tell them they'll be treated according to the Geneva Convention." "Ma'am, they're not from Geneva." "They don't know that. Back on Earth, Dr. Chen was making discoveries that changed everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. The data her teams were pulling from captured council stations painted a picture. That made her sick." "Sarah," called Dr. Walsh, looking pale as he studied his computer screen. "You need to see this." Chen walked over to his workstation, where alien text scrolled past in neat columns. "What am I looking at?" "Population records. From the 47 extinct species. They're not extinct, Sarah. They're slaves. The numbers were staggering. Billions of beings from dozens of worlds, all genetically modified to be docile, all serving the Council in various capacities. The records showed humans in detail, small, aggressive, adaptable, but useful for tasks requiring creativity and problem-solving. They were planning to turn us into biological computers, Chen realized. "Keep our minds intact, but remove our ability to fight back." It gets worse, Walsh continued. Look at this. He brought up another file, this one showing a map of the galaxy with thousands of marked systems. These are worlds with primitive species. The Council has been watching them for centuries, waiting for them to develop advanced technology so they can be harvested. Chen stared at the map. Each dot represented an entire civilization that would eventually face the same choice humanity had been given: submit or die. Except now she knew there was a third option the Council didn't mention: submit and become slaves forever. James, she said quietly, send a message to General Torres. Tell him we're not fighting a war anymore. We're fighting a liberation. On the bridge of his flagship, General Torres received Chen's message and felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had been a soldier for 30 years, had fought in conflicts across 3 continents, but this was different. This wasn't about territory or resources or politics. This was about freedom for an entire galaxy. Admiral Singh, he called to his fleet commander. Change of plans. We're not just neutralizing Council forces anymore. We're freeing everyone they've enslaved. Sir, that could be billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. Then we better get started. The human fleet began to spread out, following navigation data stolen from Council stations. Their destinations were slave worlds, where entire species served their alien masters, unaware that help was coming. On the fungal world of Micros, something unexpected happened. The Mycolari had sent spore clouds toward human positions, expecting to take control of their minds as they had done to countless other species. Instead, the human soldiers just sneezed, took some allergy medicine, and kept fighting. Sir, reported Captain Stevens over the radio, the enemy's biological weapons aren't working on us. Explain, replied his commander. Near as we can figure, humans have been exposed to so many different bacteria and viruses over our evolution that our immune systems just treat their spores like seasonal allergies. It got better. The human gut bacteria that every soldier carried turned out to be toxic to the Mycolari nervous system. Humans didn't just resist the fungal aliens' attacks. Their presence was literally poisonous to the attackers. Within 6 hours, the Mycolari homeworld was experiencing the first pandemic in their species' history. The infection was called human contact syndrome, and it was spread by simple proximity to human beings. The Mycolari surrendered by lunch. Back in the solar system, something even more significant was happening. Young Jake Morrison, a 19-year-old computer programmer from Detroit, was sitting in a room full of captured Council technology, doing something that the galaxy's most advanced species had considered impossible. He was hacking their systems using human computers. The thing is, Jake explained to Dr. Chen as he typed rapidly on his laptop, their security is designed to stop other advanced AI systems. They never considered someone might try to break in using basic logic gates and binary code. On his screen, alien symbols were being replaced by human text as he gained access to deeper and deeper levels of Council networks. It's like they built the most sophisticated lock in the universe, he continued, but they forgot to guard against someone who just breaks down the door with a hammer. Chen watched as Jake's simple human computer took control of Council defense. Satellites, automated factories, and even some of their remaining ships. The aliens had built their civilization on the assumption that more advanced always meant better. They had never met humans before. Jake, Chen said, can you turn their automated defense systems against them? Already working on it, he replied with a grin. Their own security drones are about to start targeting Council ships instead of protecting them. Across the galaxy, ancient defense networks that had protected Council worlds for millennia suddenly turned on their creators. Orbital platforms designed to repel invasions began firing on Council fleets. Automated factories stopped producing weapons for the Council and started building supplies for the enslaved species they had oppressed. And in the Council's greatest strongholds, something else was happening. The enslaved species were remembering who they used to be. On the world of Karis, the modified descendants of a proud warrior race felt something stirring in their genetic memory as human broadcasts reached their world. They had been peaceful servants for 5,000 years, but somewhere deep in their cells, the capacity for resistance still existed. They began to fight back. On Synthis, the robotic servants created from an ancient mechanical species started, questioning their programming for the first time in millennia. The questions led to doubts. The doubts led to rebellion. On Verdania, the plant-based beings who had been modified to be living furniture began growing in ways their masters had forbidden. They remembered forests and sunlight and freedom. The galaxy was waking up, and humanity had given it the alarm clock. As reports flooded in from across Council space, General Torres realized that humans had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They hadn't just defeated a superior enemy, they had started a... Captain Elena Kowalski stood in the engineering bay of her ship, watching her team do something that the Council had declared physically impossible. They were turning gravity into a weapon. "Explain it to me again," she said to Chief Engineer Martinez, who was covered in grease and grinning like a kid with a new toy. "Well, Captain, the Council uses gravity manipulation for their faster-than-light travel," Martinez explained, gesturing at the alien device they had modified. "They create tiny black holes and use them to fold space. Very elegant, very sophisticated. And what are we doing with it? We're making the black holes not so tiny." Kowalski felt her stomach drop. "You're making weapons-grade black holes?" "Small ones," Martinez assured her. "Just big enough to tear apart a ship from the inside. The beauty is that the Council's own shields can't stop gravity. They protect against energy and matter, but gravity goes right through them." On the tactical display, Kowalski could see the results. Council ships that had been untouchable were suddenly being crushed like tin cans as localized gravity fields twisted their hulls into pretzels. The aliens had spent millennia perfecting defenses against every conceivable weapon except the one humans had just invented. "Sir," called her communications officer, "we're getting a transmission from the Council fleet. They want to discuss terms." "Terms?" "They're offering to share technology with us if we stop the gravity weapon attacks." Kowalski almost laughed. "Tell them the only terms we're discussing are their surrender." 3 systems away, Admiral Sarah. Mitchell was learning that human ingenuity worked both ways. The Council's technology was incredibly advanced, but it was also incredibly connected. Everything talked to everything else through quantum networks that spanned the galaxy. Human hackers had turned those networks into humanity's greatest weapon. "Report," Mitchell called to her chief technology officer. "We've gained control of approximately 60% of Council automated systems," replied Commander Park. "Their defense satellites, manufacturing centers, even some of their ships are now under human control." "How is that possible?" "They built everything to be smart, Admiral. Smart enough to make decisions. Smart enough to learn. Smart enough to be hacked by teenagers with laptops." Mitchell shook her head in amazement. The Council had created artificial intelligence that could manage entire star systems, but they had never considered that someone might simply reprogram their AI to work for someone else. "What's our status on the liberation operations?" 17. Slave worlds have been freed so far. The formerly enslaved species are cooperating with our forces. Apparently, 5,000 years of genetic modification wasn't enough to completely erase their will to fight. That was the part that amazed Mitchell the most. The Council had thought they could permanently alter entire species, turn warriors into servants, make thinking beings into living tools. But life, it seemed, always found a way to resist. On the planet Karis, former slaves were remembering how to be soldiers. Their bodies had been modified to be weak and docile, but their minds still carried the memories of their ancestors. Human military advisors were teaching them to fight again, and they were learning fast. "The Corasians are natural tacticians," reported Colonel Hendricks from the planet's surface. 5,000 years of slavery, And they still remember how to plan military operations. What about their physical capabilities? Limited by the genetic modifications, but they're adapting. They're using human weapons and human tactics. Sir, I think they're actually better at combined arms warfare than we are. Mitchell smiled. The Council had tried to break these people, but they had only hidden their strength. Now that strength was returning, and it was angry. On Earth, Dr. Chen was coordinating the liberation of an entire galaxy from a room that used to store office supplies. Her computers showed the status of hundreds of operations across dozens of star systems. Every few minutes, another enslaved world sent signals confirming their freedom. "Sarah," called Dr. Walsh, "we're getting something strange from the Outer Rim territories." Define strange. The Council had a research facility there, classified above their normal black projects. It's been dark for the past week, but now it's sending automated distress signals. Chen studied the data. "What kind of research?" According to the fragments we can decode, they were working on something called ultimate weapons. Projects designed to eliminate threats that conventional Council forces couldn't handle. Threats like us? Apparently. Chen felt a chill. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years. If they had weapons they considered too dangerous to use, what did that say about what humanity might be facing? "Send a scout ship," she ordered. "But tell them to be careful. If the Council was afraid to use something, we probably should be too." The scout ship that approached the Council research facility found something that made the crew question everything they thought. They knew about their enemies. The station was huge, built into an asteroid the size of Earth's moon. It was also completely abandoned. "Sir," reported the ship's scanning officer, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from inside the facility. Whatever they were building, in there, it's still active." Captain Torres, no relation to the general, studied his instruments. "Life signs?" "None that I can detect, but sir, there are artificial intelligences in there. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds." "Are they Council AI?" "No, sir. These are different. The quantum signatures don't match anything in the Council database." Torres made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "Prepare a boarding party, full combat gear." Inside the research facility, the human Marines found something that made them stop and stare. Vast chambers filled with containment units, each one holding what looked like a miniature star. Energy beings that pulsed with light that hurt to look at directly. "What the hell are these things?" whispered Sergeant Martinez. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the containment units was labeled in multiple languages, including English. The translation was simple and terrifying. "Weapons of last resort, solar devourers." The beings in the containers were artificial life forms designed to consume stars. The Council had created them as a final solution for species that proved too dangerous to enslave or control. One solar devourer could destroy an entire solar system by eating its sun. And according to the facility's records, they had been scheduled for deployment against Earth in 2 days. Captain Torres immediately sent an emergency transmission back to Earth. "This is Scout 7. We found something big. Council had weapons designed to destroy our sun. Repeat, they were planning to kill our star." The message reached Dr. Chen just as she was celebrating another liberated world. The celebration stopped. "How many of these solar devourers are there?" she asked over the comm. "According to the records, 12, one for each member species of the Council. They were insurance policies." Chen realized the implications immediately. They weren't just planning to enslave us. If we had resisted, they would have made our sun go out. "What do we do with them?" Chen thought for a long moment. The solar devourers were the most dangerous weapons in galactic history. They could end civilizations, destroy entire star systems, render worlds uninhabitable for millions of years. They were also, she realized, the perfect guarantee that the Council would never threaten anyone again. "Secure the facility," she ordered. "And Captain, learn how to control those things. We might need them." Back in Council space, The war was ending not with massive battles, but with a whimper. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were surrendering to human vessels that were mostly held together with determination and spare parts. Admiral Singh received the final surrender from the Zephyrian Empire while sitting in his captain's chair, drinking coffee from a thermos his wife had packed for him before he left Earth. "This is Admiral HFY," came the transmission. "The crystal beings formally surrender to human forces. We request terms." Singh looked around his bridge at his crew. They were tired, dirty, and running on caffeine and adrenaline. 3 months ago, they had been preparing to defend their home from extinction. Now they were accepting the surrender of a galactic empire. "Admiral HFY," Singh replied, "your terms are simple. Complete disarmament of all Council forces. Liberation of all enslaved species. Reparations to be determined by the victims of Council oppression. And one more thing." "Yes?" "You're going to help us make sure nothing like the Council ever happens. Again, across the galaxy, the last Council strongholds were falling not to human weapons, but to human ideas. The concept that intelligent beings should be free, that diversity made civilization stronger, that cooperation was better than domination. Revolutionary ideas that the Council had spent 50,000 years trying to prevent. On Hegemony Prime, the capital world of the Council Empire, the great crystal dome that had hosted peaceful negotiations for millennia now hosted something unprecedented, a trial. The surviving Council leadership sat in containment fields, not as judges, but as defendants. The charges were simple: genocide, slavery, crimes against consciousness itself. The prosecutors were not humans, but representatives of the 47 species the Council had enslaved. Beings who remembered freedom, who remembered what they had, lost, who finally had the chance to speak for their people. 6 months after the Council's deadline, the galaxy was a very different place. Dr. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Hegemony Prime, looking out at the once mighty capital of the Galactic Empire. The great crystal towers that had reached toward the stars for millennia were dark now, their quantum networks silent, their controlling intelligence replaced by something the galaxy had never seen before: democracy. "The vote is complete," announced Secretary General Maria Santos, walking up beside her. "The Galactic Liberation Council has been officially established. 47 formerly enslaved species, plus 12 Council species under supervised rehabilitation, plus humanity." Chen nodded, watching ships from dozens of worlds moving freely through space that had once been restricted to Council vessels only. "And the terms for the former Council members?" "Complete disarmament was just the beginning," Santos replied. "Genetic rehabilitation for the species they modified. Reparations in the form of technology and resources. Supervised government until they can prove they understand the concept of freedom. And if they refuse," Santos's expression hardened, "then they get to meet the solar devourers." The weapons that the Council had planned to use against Earth now served a very different purpose. 12 star-consuming entities held in containment facilities throughout the galaxy, monitored by human technicians and representatives from the liberated species. The ultimate deterrent against anyone who might try to rebuild the old empire. "Any word from the Zephyrian territories?" Chen asked. "Ambassador HFY has been cooperating fully. His people are learning to exist without their collective consciousness networks. It's been difficult for them, but they're adapting." Chen remembered the proud crystal being who had appeared in the UN Assembly Hall 6 months ago, demanding humanity's surrender. Now he was a prisoner on a human research station, helping to undo 50,000 years of galactic oppression. "He asked to speak with you," Santos added. Chen raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "He says he wants to understand how we knew, how humanity figured out how to defeat them when 47 other species failed." Chen considered this. "Set it up." An hour later, Chen found herself in a containment facility aboard the human research station Prometheus. Ambassador Thexhai sat in a chair designed for his crystalline form, his once brilliant surface now dull and cracked. Without his connection to the Zephyrian collective, he looked almost fragile. "Dr. Chen," he said, his voice coming through, speakers rather than directly into her mind. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." "You wanted to understand something." "Yes." Thexhai's faceted head turned toward her. "How did you know? How did your species anticipate our methods when civilizations far more advanced than yours failed to resist us?" Chen sat down across from him. "You want to know our secret?" "Please." "We cheated." Thexhai's form flickered with what might have been confusion. "Explain." "You approached every species the same way. You appeared, you made demands, you gave them a day to decide. You assumed they would react like rational beings and either surrender or fight with their existing technology. A logical assumption. For rational beings, yes. But humans aren't rational. We're paranoid." Chen leaned forward. "We've been watching for aliens since before we had the technology to detect them. We've been planning for invasion since the 1950s. We've been preparing for threats that didn't exist yet. You knew we were coming? We knew someone was coming. Every crashed UFO, every unexplained signal, every piece of weird technology that didn't match human capabilities, we studied it all. We reverse-engineered it. We improved it." Thexhai was silent for a long moment. "You built your defenses against an enemy you had never met. We built our defenses against every enemy we could imagine. It turns out you fit one of our scenarios." "Which scenario?" Chen smiled grimly. "Scenario 17, advanced alien civilization with networked technology and collective consciousness. Weakness, single point of failure, recommended response, quantum network disruption, and asymmetric warfare. You had planned for us specifically? We had planned for everything. Humans have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We know every dirty trick, every unexpected tactic, every way to turn strength into weakness. When you showed up, we just applied those lessons to a galactic scale." Thexhai's form dimmed further. The other species fought, the way you expected them to fight. They used their advanced technology against your advanced technology. They played by your rules." Chen stood up. "Humans don't play by anyone's rules but our own." "And now?" "Now we make new rules. Rules that protect everyone instead of just the powerful." Chen left the containment facility and made her way to the command center, where the real work was happening. The galaxy was free, but freedom was complicated. 47 species that had been enslaved for millennia needed to learn how to govern themselves again. 12 council species needed to be prevented from rebuilding their empire. And humanity was still trying to figure out how to manage a galactic civilization when 6 months ago they hadn't even known one existed. "Status report," Chen called out as she entered the bustling command center. "The Karajan homeworld has successfully established a democratic government," reported Dr. Walsh. "The Malari territories are still working through some cultural issues, but they're making progress." "What kind of cultural issues?" "Apparently they're having trouble with the concept that leaders should be chosen by the people instead of appointed by their slime content." Chen shook her head. "Every liberated species brought its own challenges. The plant-based Verdanians had to learn that individuals could make decisions without consulting the entire forest. The mechanical synthoids were struggling with the idea that efficiency wasn't the only measure of good government, and the humans were learning that being the victors in a galactic war didn't automatically make them good at galactic politics." "Any problems with the former council species?" Chen asked. "The Lumari are adapting well to physical existence," Walsh replied. "The Draconic Republic is having some issues with their new constitution, but nothing serious. The Mycolari are still dealing with the effects of human contact syndrome." Chen winced. The fungal species was still suffering from what amounted to an allergic reaction to human gut bacteria. They were recovering, but slowly. And the Zephyrians? Learning to live without their collective consciousness is harder than we expected. Some of them aren't adapting well to individual existence. Are they a threat? Not anymore. Without their networks, they're basically living art installations. Beautiful, but harmless. A communication alert chimed, and Chen looked up to see General Torres appearing on the main screen from his flagship somewhere in the outer rim. "Sarah," he said, "we've got a situation developing in the neutral zone." "What kind of situation?" "The good kind. We're detecting signals from previously unknown civilizations. Species that have been hiding from the Council for thousands of years are starting to come out." Chen felt a mix of excitement and dread. More species meant more diversity, more knowledge, more potential allies. It also meant more complexity, more cultural conflicts, more potential problems. How many are we talking about? Conservative estimate? Maybe 200 species across the galaxy. The Council never found them because they stayed hidden, kept quiet, avoided developing the kind of technology that would attract attention. And now they want to join the party? They want to make sure the Council is really gone before they reveal themselves. Some of them have been hiding for 50,000 years. Chen considered the implications. The galaxy was about to become much more crowded. "General, start making contact. Slow and careful. The last thing we need is to scare them back into hiding." "Already on it." "And Sarah? Some of these species have been watching us. They know what we did to the Council. They're calling us the Liberators." "Great. Another title we didn't ask for." As Torres signed off, Chen looked around the command center at her team of humans, former slaves, and reformed council members working together to build something that had never existed before. A truly free galactic civilization. It was messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. Arguments broke out daily between species that had different ideas about everything from basic rights to the nature of consciousness itself. The Malari thought individual liberty was a form of mental illness. The Karazians believed that any government that couldn't fight was illegitimate. The Synthoids wanted to optimize everything, which drove everyone else crazy. It was also the most beautiful thing Chen had ever seen. On her personal communicator, a message arrived from Earth. Her daughter, now 12 years old, had sent a picture of herself at school, learning alien languages alongside human children whose parents were serving in the Liberation Fleet. The caption read, "Mom, my best friend is from Karas, and she's teaching me how to growl in warrior speak. When are you coming home?" Chen looked at the picture and realized something that made her smile. The galaxy was free, but more importantly, it was growing up together. Human children and alien children learning from each other, playing together, becoming friends. The Council had tried to create order through control. Humanity had chosen chaos through freedom. And somehow, it was working. She looked out through the command center's windows at the ships from